We have to appreciate the simple pleasures in life. Holding a loved one's hand, fart jokes, a good steak, using your awesome accumulation of professional knowledge to violently crush the impotent ideas of pseudo-intellectuals. Hey guys, it's Daniel, licensed therapist. Whilst perusing the interwebs, I came across patrickbet-david. He has a lot of interviews and he's interviewed some of the most influential people: Kobe Bryant, Mike Tyson, Shaq, Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson. I mean, the list goes on and on. He's also worth about $200 million and has some really good financial content as well. Needless to say, he's an expert when it comes to finances, when it comes to media and business. He also fancies himself somewhat of a philosopher. And he's very interested in the mindset, which I appreciate because it actually makes him a really good interviewer. But I came across a podcast where he starts giving out relationship advice. And I felt that it was my duty to let you guys know whether this guy is talking out of his butt or if he actually has some good advice. Let's get into it.
Everything in life is a risk. You choose to get married, it's a risk. You choose to stay single, it's a risk. You choose to have kids, you're taking a risk. You choose to not have kids, you're taking a risk. There isn't anything in life you do that's not a risk. I could have chosen to have been a bachelor living in a $40 million penthouse in Miami and had different girls coming every night. But then I asked the question, I said, so what will my Tuesday night look like? What will my weekend look like? What will my Friday night look like at 43? What am I doing? Okay, cool. One weekend you do it, it's cool. 5 girls, 10 girls, 20 girls, 30 girls. Then what? What are you chasing? Are you trying to compete with Will Chamberlain? You're going after Warren Beatty? What record are you trying to break? And then what if you get that record? Are they going to put a frame in a Hall of Fame saying 5,293 different? Who cares about that? Only guys in their 20s may care about that, or some other people may care about that. But some people may care for that. That's still a risk. It's a lonely life eventually, okay, if you end up in that space.
To have kids or not have kids? Should we live a life chasing pleasure and sex with the most beautiful people we can get into bed with? Or should we settle down, pop out some kids? And I'm sorry guys, I can't give you the answer. There are things about relationships that we know that apply to everyone universally, and we'll get into some of those later, but this thing is so individual. This is a deathbed question. On the day of our death, we will know if we chose right or wrong. And what is right for one person may not be right for another person. But I personally agree with Patrick. I believe most people would find sex meaningless without that deep emotional connection. It might take a little while, but I think people get there. But I don't think that's all people. I do think that there are those people who stumble into marriage and stumble into kids without thinking about it, and then later they regret that. Although in my experience, those people are much, much fewer. But what I would advise people to do is be very honest with yourself, because people tend to justify bad decisions. And when they have a moment where they find out that they are not happy, and by that time, it's too late, then we lose our most precious commodity: time. We can't turn back the clock. Know yourself. Be honest with yourself. Determine the kind of life you want to live and go for it. So, pretty good, Patrick.
A lot of our relationship today is how we got married, not necessarily today. So let me unpack that for you. Our first date, we go out. We had known each other for 5.5 years. She was dating another guy or two, and I was dating another girl or two. And then finally we were single. And I said, who are you looking for? And we went on our first date. The next date, we went out and I took her to Borders. Borders in Santa Monica, right by the stairs in Santa Monica, which you guys know the stairs in Santa Monica. I took her to Borders when there used to be a Borders, because there's not a Borders today. I bought her a book on our second date. It was called 101 Questions to Ask Before You Get Engaged. I've done this exercise with 3 other girls at the same time, okay? Not being promiscuous, I'm just doing this exercise with 3 other girls because I was at a phase that I'm looking for a wife. I'm not looking for no more playing around, fooling around. I knew I was ready. I was not ready for a long time. How old were you? 28, I was ready. 28, 29, I was ready. So she reads the book. I said, you go through the book. I said, 55, 54, the questions are important to me. I don't care about the rest. But whatever questions are important to you, I'll give you my answers. A week later, we meet and we go through it. 6 hours to go through these questions. Questions are, how long can you handle me being away on the road? Questions are, what baggage do you bring to the table? And on the bottom it says, if the person says none, run. The questions are, how many kids do you want to have? Who manages the money? What do you think about prenuptial agreements? Everything is in there, okay? So we went through it.
If I had pants on right now, I would give Patrick a standing ovation. What is the point of dating? Have a good time? The thrill of the chase? Companionship? Well, Patrick said, to hell with all that. I need to evaluate. We are choosing a person to let into our lives. Someone who we are trusting with our most precious, valuable possession. Us. You better make sure that person is going to take care of you and that you can work well with that person in a relationship. Some people may look at Patrick taking his wife to Borders, rest in peace, as crazy, but I love it. He just cut to the chase, and months, if not years of evaluation was done in 6 hours. How many times have you heard about people getting into a relationship and it's all wrong, but it just keeps going and going, and then after years they figure out that it just isn't the right person? They wasted years. I love how he said that relationship is based on what he did at the beginning. And if you evaluate well, it is a setup for a successful relationship. So, mwah, very nice, Patrick.
And then I kept asking her for a year and a half, because you need arguments. Because the first 3 to 6 months of a relationship is a lie. It's all fake. It's Hollywood. We're acting. We're giving our best. We're not giving our worst. So I had to learn. Eventually, I'm like, when you date a lot of people, you learn what you don't want more than what you do want. I definitely don't want this. I can't deal with this. I don't want that. I want these 5 things, but I definitely don't want these 13 things.
Patrick makes a couple claims here, which I don't necessarily agree with. He says the first 3 to 6 months of a relationship are Hollywood. It's just acting. And I agree that this does happen and people can be deceived, but we don't have to do that. In fact, I'm a big proponent of just being yourself. But I understand that that can be difficult. And if that is difficult, it can be a barrier to evaluation. It takes confidence and self-assuredness to be authentically yourself from the beginning. And that's why I'm a big proponent also of being emotionally healthy before getting into a relationship. You will be setting yourself up for success once again. Also, Patrick says that you will learn what you don't want. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that if you think about what you want in a partner and in a family, then that would be super helpful in making a good choice along with knowing what you don't want. I think he's speaking from his own experience here. So be confident, be yourself, and know what you want. It will help tremendously.
I got a call the other day from a guy that I never thought was going to get a divorce. Never. I mean, this is a guy, like, think about who you know that you say, that couple, never. They're going to be together. That kind of a guy calls me. And I said, what happened? The guy is a money guy. He's a $20 million guy. He makes money. They have a kid together. And she just woke up one day and she says, I want to go back with my guy from high school. And he's single now. And I can't stop thinking about him. Woke up and left him. She's an absolute great girl from a great family. There is nothing about her track record that you could say, well, that one thing, nothing. He's a stud. But that just happened. So what's the concern? Somebody listens to that story and says, that's exactly why I'm not getting married. No, the moral of the story is people change. You're not God. I can't change you. You can't change me. We have to take risks. And marriage is the ultimate risk.
Sure, marriage is the ultimate risk. And I feel like people hear this story and they get freaked out, but I actually completely disagree with Patrick here. This girl is not a great girl. The marriage was not a good marriage, and the moral of the story is not that people change at all. I'm willing to bet that if you give me 10 minutes with this lady, that I would be able to tell you that this was always there. It did not spontaneously come out of nowhere. Perhaps to Patrick, the marriage looked great from the outside, but I guarantee you that something was wrong in the relationship or with either of the two people in the relationship. And that is all to say that yes, marriage is a risk, but we can totally mitigate that risk by doing a good, you guessed it, evaluation. Let's speculate for a moment. This guy was worth $20 million. I don't have $20 million, but I assume that it takes a lot of work to make that amount of money. I assume that he dedicated a large part of his life, his time, and his attention to making that money. Maybe he didn't have the ability to make a good evaluation, so he missed something. Maybe he just spent all his time working on his business and caused him to neglect his wife. Patrick makes this appear like a crazy, unexplainable thing that just happened to have happened. But the thing is, hearing the tiny bit of what he told us causes me to raise an eyebrow. So to me, this whole thing is totally avoidable, and the risk of this happening in my eyes is slim to none if you are good at evaluating. And please, I am begging you, avoid people like that lady.
What are your thoughts on prenups?
I'm all for it.
Do you have a prenup?
Absolutely. I'm all for it. I think you need to have it. And let me tell you what it did to our relationship when we have a prenup.
Yeah.
So do you have one yourself? Or
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what it did for us. So here's what happened. Family calls. Hey, babe, such and such happened with my mother's cousins, nephews, wife, whoever it is. And I want to bill this guy. I need $8,000. Here's $8,000, babe. And you go to work and you're kind of bitter at your wife. You're like, I don't even know who this person is. Why the hell are we billing this person out $8,000? Hey, babe, you know, this person died and we kind of have to help with the funeral, final expense. They don't have any money. $18,000. Okay, here's $18,000. When those things happen 2, 3, 4, 5 times, you're eventually a little bit annoyed. She says, I want to buy that new Chanel purse. How much, babe? Well, it's up a little bit, $12,000. Okay, go buy the Chanel purse. Somebody may say, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with this? No problem. Everybody has this different set of guidelines. I like where we have your money, my money, our money. This is your money. You want to buy that Chanel purse? Buy it with your money. If I want to buy that purse for you, I'll buy it with my money so you know I bought it with my money. It's a form of I bought it with mine rather than our money. Okay? If we have something that we're doing for our kids and ourselves, which is us, team us, this is our money. If you want to spend $50,000 on your nephew or your niece, you don't even need to ask me because you're using whose money? Your money. I noticed that minimize arguments to the point where no one's being judged. No one said, why are you buying that purse? Why are you doing this? Why are you buying that? Why? No. So we go to Louis Vuitton when this thing gets set up and she says, can I see that purse? And can I see that purse? Yes. How much is that? 35. How much is that? 45. She looks at me. I want to buy these. And I look at her, I'm like, okay, I'm buying it with my money. Okay, go for
Now,
it.
what if she doesn't have money, though? What if she is stay-at-home mom, she's not having income, but she wants, let's just say, the $10,000 Chanel purse?
But how much do you make? How much do you make? Say, so give me that scenario, but give me the case study with the husband. What does the husband make?
Gosh, let's just say $1 million a year.
If he makes $1 million a year, and you know you're going to set up a prenuptial agreement to protect you, create a portion, an account where you put money in where she can do whatever she does without asking you. That's the account. So whatever she wants to buy without asking, because I'm in the business of minimizing argument.
Money. One of the biggest sticking points in marriage. Let's start off with prenups. I actually do not believe in prenups. Now, hear me out. I understand what Patrick is saying here. You have to have one. And if I was a lawyer or a businessman, I would agree. Why not have one? It limits your liability and it protects you. But I am a therapist and I am looking at this from the perspective of the relationship, not the perspective of the individual. 2 core tenets of a relationship are trust and commitment. And if you think about a prenup, it actually undermines both of those things. You get a prenup because you can't trust that this person you are marrying is not going to cheat on you, fall out of love with you, or just plain leave you and take half of your stuff. So we have a legal solution, a prenup. So already trust is compromised. And what happens as a result? Commitment is compromised. If we have a prenup, splitting up is not as bad. But hey, if we don't live together, if we don't have kids, if we don't change our names, if we don't have joint accounts, it would be super easy to split up. but then we aren't fully embracing the relationship and aren't experiencing the awesome things about being in one. But all of this is a symptom of not being fully committed. We have an out. But if you could trust someone, and if you were committed and knew they were committed to you, then you don't need an out. And you would be able to be 100% secure in the relationship. And that's what we're all looking for. But Daniel, what about being exposed and vulnerable? What about someone taking half of my stuff and it doesn't work out? Well, if the legal solution leads to compromised relationships, what do? Because Patrick talks about that scenario of his wife buying Chanel purses or giving money to people and it starts to bother him. Daniel, what is the relationship therapeutic answer? Patrick says separate money, which could be good, but here is the answer, boys and girls. Evaluation. Evaluation, guys. Know the person you are marrying. If you don't want someone to spend like crazy, then don't choose someone that spends like crazy. If you're worried about your future spouse buying Chanel bags, choose someone who has never heard of Chanel and doesn't care about that stuff. Don't want someone who gives away your money to family and friends? Find someone who has the principle that money is shared between husband and wife and does not leave the household unless both parties agree. People get into problems when they don't evaluate and they unwittingly find themselves in these situations that are difficult to get out of. These things take work and compromise. It is much easier to avoid all of these problems than get married and find yourself in these situations. You will save a ton of money on marriage counseling and couples therapy, and you will experience one of the best things in this world, a good relationship. But if you have not avoided this situation, your guy is here. And use the code YouTube for 10% off of therapy. I am totally kidding about that. Thanks for watching, you awesome person. See you next time.